So the draft is coming up. Everyone wants to know, and I feel like I got you here, so I might as well ask you, who are we drafting Thursday night?
I'm going to tell you.
And it's intercepted by Marlon Humphrey.
Marlon Humphrey is without a doubt in the conversation to be the best corner in football.
Eric, thank you for tuning in today, coming into Studio 44. Happy to see you. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I know you got a really busy schedule coming up with the draft and free agency and all the other things going on. Tell me a little bit about your daily schedule right now as we're getting closer to the draft.
Well, I would say, Marlon, for the last 3-4 weeks, we were bringing guys in for visits. You probably remember when you were a young guy, rookie, visiting NFL teams, interviewing with GMs and head coaches, assistant coaches, coordinators. We bring in 30 guys. They come in the mornings. They get physicals in the morning. They're usually done by around noon. Then I typically will watch tape, try to get as many guys done. We've got a board of about 185 players. My goal would be to probably watch, evaluate, and write reports on the top 120 or so myself, which would get us down to probably the 4th round, 5th round. I used to try and watch every single player. Nowadays, I got a lot of things going on. Players like you coming up, bothering me, asking me to do podcasts, things like that. Other things throughout the course of the day. So I'm really focused on, the picks usually through the 4th round or so, and I'll let the scouts take care of the rest.
So you spoke on, watching film. Mm-hmm. I know you watch a lot of film along with all the other scouts. Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting with such a busy day of scheduling and watching film. I sat with your family in the box when I was hurt the last game of the year.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that, but they spoke highly of you, and it made me wonder, how do you balance, being the GM of the Baltimore Ravens with all the time you spend here that I see you and I know what you do at home? How do you balance that family life?
Yeah, it's hard. And you come from a close-knit family, as do I. Family for me has always been really the force in my life that's really stabilized me. I think as a young scout, I had the best mentor in Ozzie, and I would see his routine every single day. He would always get in around 7:30, and he would always leave by around 7:30 at night. A lot of guys in this business, they're looking at the clock, they're looking at their watches, they're trying to stay late. But Ozzie has this unique way of really coming in, being focused, and getting his work done, and then being able to go home and be with his family. So for me, my goal, the way that I've always organized my life is take my kids to school when I can, get in around 8, and then I try to get home every night by 8:30, 9 o'clock. I usually can get that done. Typically won't eat dinner here. My wife waits for me, have dinner at home, and then, if I can get home like on a Wednesday night, Thursday night, hang out with the boys, play some video games, play some football down in the basement, watch some TV. Like last night, we watched the Celtics game. Big Celtics family. Watched the Celtics last night. And just try to and then the other thing is I don't do work at home. So when I do get home, I'm present. I'm not, I may do work at home like on a Saturday morning. I may get up at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, watch a couple guys. But by the time the kids are awake, I'm there, I'm present, I'm engaged, and I'm really a full-time dad.
You spoke on Ozzie a little bit there. I actually got a question for you about Ozzie later.
Yeah.
But how is it being around Baltimore? I see from Miss EDC, you guys go to Orioles games, different things.
Yeah.
You're like the man around. Are you a celebrity in the city of Baltimore? Do you get recognized a lot?
Not really, especially if I wear a hat. If I wear a hat, nobody recognizes me. I've always cared a lot about this community. I grew up in Boston, but for me, one of the ways that I sort of like look at myself is what am I doing for the community? How do I give back? So we've been able to be fortunately being involved in different, nonprofits in the community. There's a residual benefit, which is your kids see your involvement in the community. So it's a parenting thing. They see the importance of that. So they're involved as well, whether it's the Family Tree, Irvine Nature Center, Maryland SPCA. I love this community, and I love the Baltimore community. And so for me, giving back, being out, seeing people, meeting Ravens fans, I think we got the best fan base in the NFL. I love this community. I love the blue-collar feel to this community. It's a lot like where I grew up and how I grew up, so I really appreciate that as well. And I love the fact, just the last thing that I would say is, like, for me, starting here in '96, we had a white helmet, Baltimore football team, no identity, no brand. And for me now, after 26 years, to see the growth of the franchise, to see the growth of the brand, that's a very rewarding thing for me.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, Baltimore. We were called the Baltimore football team at first?
Well, when we first came in, we had stationery that said Baltimore football team, and it was a white helmet. And, you know, we were the Ravens at that point, but they had printed stationery before we knew what we were going to be. And, you know, you would go, like I would, you know, tell somebody, I remember I got an apartment in Owings Mills, and I said to the woman, she said, "Do you have a job?" And I said, "Yeah, I have a job. I'm working for the Ravens." And she said, "What is that? Is that a Canadian League team?" She had no idea.
That's funny. So I remember when draft was virtual and everything was virtual.
Yeah.
Everybody was doing work from home. The Ravens put out a clip that you and Harbaugh are neighbors.
Yeah.
And I have to ask, you know, someone had to get there first. So I'm trying to figure out who followed who in that situation.
Yeah, I actually followed John. So John had moved over there. We were living in Hunt Valley, and my wife said, "Hey, I want to look at this house." And so we made the decision to move. It was during the season. It was 2014, just before Thanksgiving. I said, "Lacey, I really don't want to move during the season. Like, it's a major deal, you know. It's not something you do lightly." So she goes and looks at this house. She calls me and says, "You got to check it out." So I came over to the house, and it was a beautiful day. The view was insane, looking out over Caves Valley, Green Spring Valley. And I was like, "Let's go." And so we made an offer, and she said, "You know, Harbs lives right over there." And I was like, "Oh, maybe we should retract the offer." No, I didn't say that. But we actually don't live like next to each other. We're kind of perpendicular. So we're adjacent to each other on this. There's a huge farm behind us. And so like I can't really see his house. He can't see my house. But if we kind of walk through someone's backyard, we can get together pretty quick.
We're going to switch directions a little bit back to football. So you're known as really good job of scouting talent, especially underrated talent.
Okay.
I'm going to show you a guy here.
All right.
Okay. It's about 5'10", it's about 185. I mean, I want you to give me what this guy, you know, it's all about playing like a Raven. This guy's a Raven. I've heard a lot of people say that. When I got drafted, someone said that guy plays like a Raven.
Yeah.
So I want you to look at this a little bit.
Yeah.
And you tell me if this guy has what this guy could either work on or what he does well. You can just press play there.
You know what? I know where you got this from.
What do you mean? You haven't even played it. You don't even know what's going on here.
Yeah. Well, number one, I'd say he's very stiff.
I think he's got some great ball skills, though.
Good ball skills. You can tell he was probably running back in high school. Undersized, looks like about a 4'9", 40.
I think he's a little faster than 4'9".
Maybe 4'8", 5', 4'9".
Yeah, that works.
But smart, overachiever. Looks like a good undrafted free agent, I would say.
Okay. I got this clip. I did do a little bit of cheating.
Yeah.
But I was impressed. I was impressed by the ball skills there. And I think, you know, that 8th round, it came around back in the day. I think, you know, if Rhodes, you could have been there.
I think back in the day, they actually had 16 rounds before they had 8 rounds. Yeah. You can imagine the product in some of those late rounds.
I know Tony Jefferson would have been really, really pumped about that. He would have been in there early. So everyone you're now the GM of the Baltimore Ravens, of course. Mm-hmm. Everyone starts from somewhere at the bottom and moves their way up. How did you get your job with the Ravens?
Well, I went to school up in New England, small college. Everybody ends up working on Wall Street or going to law school or, you know, but I was always I loved football. I always wanted to work in football, professional football. I was 5'9", about 180 in 8th grade. And in high school, I was about 5'9", 180. So
That's okay.
I figured that I was going to probably be a D3 athlete. So my goal was to scout. My goal was, I didn't really want to coach, but I knew I had to get a job coaching. So I went to my coaches, and you know, these guys were really the most important figures in my life at that point, other than family, and said, "Listen, how do I get a job as a GA someplace coaching? Because I want to end up getting into the NFL." So I did that. I started coaching D3 level. I coached my first year wideouts, which was good for me because I had been a defensive player, and then second year D-line, third year linebackers. Along the way, I had tried to get an internship in the NFL in scouting. Sent letters out. The only team that had an opening was the Redskins. At the time, the Redskins, now the Commanders. So I went down there in 1994 and worked in scouting for about 8 weeks with Charlie Casserly was the GM, North Turner was the head coach. They had just drafted Heath Schuler, Michael Westbrook. So that was a really, I think for me, a really important step in my development. I had the coaching background now, and I had the scouting background at that level. Scott Cohen, who works upstairs, was working for the Redskins at the time and the Commanders, and he said, hey, I'm going to try to help you. I'm going to recommend you, and Charlie's going to recommend you Casserly. So they ended up, I had a chance to interview for the job here with Ozzie, and I was scared to death. Like, it was just the most intimidating thing. But I got the job. I came down here in May of 1996. One of my first jobs was picking up Ray Lewis at the airport. And you know, I always tell people, you know, there's the bottom level, the bottom, the floor, and then there's 6 feet under. And that's really where I was. We were a small organization. A lot of people got left behind in Cleveland. I ended up working in PR, scouting, equipment room, operations, whatever needed to be done. They'd just say, hey, go give it to Eric. And the best part about it, and the advice that I would give anybody is when you have a chance to learn what other people do, you're being given a gift. Because a lot of people, especially in this business, they don't appreciate what the other people have to do. Whether you're a player, whether you're in some other department, you don't really know what that person's going through every day in their job. And for me, in that situation, 1996, I got a chance to understand what the trainers do. I got a chance to understand what the equipment guys do every day, operations, security, and that was a gift.
Speaking of driving, going to get Ray Lewis, I heard a unique story about a crazy thing that happened with you when you were taking different people to different places, to appointments and different things. I think you might know this story, but what is a very crazy thing you had to experience when you were doing that?
I've had a few. One of the stories, and I don't know if this is one you're talking about, but so we had an old gray van, this thing, and we used that gray van, I think it went back to Cleveland. The gray van had a gas gauge that it was sporadic at best, and so you never knew how much gas was going to be in the gray van. And I had no money, so I wasn't going to put any gas in the gray van. So I had picked up a player, I believe he's now an agent, maybe, named Leo Goaz, Goeas, Hawaiian guy, offensive lineman, St. Louis Rams at the time. He was also Portuguese, which resonated with me because I'm Portuguese. Take Leo, we're driving down. At this time, we're going to Kernan, which is a different hospital on 695. All of a sudden, we start to the van starts to shake. And I'm like, oh no, man, I think we ran out of gas. So we pull over there by Security Boulevard, and I'm like, what are we going to do? He's got an appointment. He's got to get some MRIs. I'm like, I'm going to get fired. You know, like, this is it, man. My dream is over. So we're waiting. Leo and I were trying to flag somebody down. Well, nobody's pulling over because Leo is a big dude. He's about 6'6". So I'm like, Leo, get back in the van. I'll flag somebody down. So I see a Utz potato chip truck, and it's like coming down the road. And I jump out in front. I'm like, stop, I need your help. The guy's like, what's wrong? I'm like, can you take us to Kernan to get an MRI? He's like, who? I'm like, come on, Leo. Leo gets out, and the guy's like, oh, man, I don't know. This truck, there were no seats. Well, there was the driver's seat, but there were no other seats. It was just boxes of potato chips everywhere, big boxes. So me and Leo, we get in, and we got to stand up, basically. He's hunched over, I'm standing up. We drive into Kernan in this Utz potato chip truck, and Dr. Tucker's just out in front. And he's looking at me, and he's like, Eric? He's like, I'm sure there's a story here somewhere. And so that was it. That was one story. Was that the story?
That was the story.
Yeah.
That was the story. You
Yeah.
never know what's going to happen. I think,
Yeah.
you know, that was some major adversity. But you got there. You got there on time.
Yeah.
So draft's coming up. I know every team's thinking they're going to pick this guy. You don't know who's going to be there. I know we do a lot of preparation ahead of time, but what is it like being in that draft room? Like, is there any disagreements? I wanted this guy. How is that process kind of in the draft?
Well, the meetings themselves can be somewhat confrontational. You know, you're basically scrimmaging players, and so it might be, Marshawn Lattimore versus Marlon Humphrey. and you kind of go through it and you talk about both guys' games and what you see and what you don't see and what you'd like to see and how this guy played in this moment, how this guy played in this moment. Then you go through their numbers, you go through their backgrounds, their families, you talk about all that stuff. By the time we're actually in the draft on draft day, it's much more of a clinical situation. It's basically like a chess game. It's me, it's Ozzie, and we've got a game plan, we've got our notes, we know what we're going to do, and we're just waiting. We're just waiting and waiting and waiting for each pick to be made, and then we'll pivot based off of that. And so there's no more fighting, there's no more discussion, there's no more drama. The work has already been done. Now, every once in a while, you'll get thrown a curveball. And I remember specifically the draft. We drafted Haloti Ngata, and there was a player in that draft, Dante Whitner. He was a safety, played at Ohio State. He was going to be the safe guy, the safe pick. So every year I want to have a safe pick of a player that I know is going to be there. He may not be the guy that we want necessarily, but we know we'd be happy with that guy. And usually that safe pick is there. That year, Dante got picked, and I don't remember what pick it was. I think we had the 13th pick. He might have gotten picked 8 or 9. When that happens, you get a little tight because now you're like, okay, what's our fallback plan? Our fallback plan just got taken. We always have a fallback type of player in every draft. By Monday night, we'll have the list. I'll have my game plan. I'll have my cheat sheet. I'll have basically watched every single player that we're interested in, and we will be ready to go.
You brought up Marshawn and me. When I got drafted, Ozzie was the GM.
Yeah.
So, I feel like I got you here. If you were the GM at the time, would I be a Baltimore Raven or would I be over here, over there? I mean, where?
Well, that's a great question.
Where would I be?
And I think if you'd asked Ozzie, he'd say, Eric is always running the draft. So I think people probably, these guys know because they've been here, but my role has always been the same, going back to 2005, which is I'd organize the draft, organize the meetings, come up with a list, and then basically that's the list that we use. And so people don't really believe this, but we actually do draft best available player. So whoever the highest player is at the time, that's the pick we're going to make. You were the highest pick at the time. If I were the GM, you'd have still been the highest pick at the time because I made the list with the coach's help, with the scouts' help, and I'm still doing it. And so, takes a little bit more work now. I have an appreciation for what Ozzie, did as GM because I'm running the meetings and I'm still doing all that other stuff. So, but yeah, you'd have been the highest player on the list because we go through, we talk about every single player, and then what I'm always doing, so we go around the room, we have the scouts, we have the coaches on the periphery of the table, and I'll go around the room and say, okay, Lattimore versus Humphrey. Lattimore versus Humphrey. And then I ask the guys that have done both guys. And then if I've done them, I'll take their advice, their input, and then I'll say, you know what? I think Humphrey's better. He's more physical, he's got more size, he's faster. He played really well against this opponent, better makeup. Or I might say, I like Lattimore better. He hasn't missed any games in his career. He's played, 36 straight games, whatever it is. There's always going to be little things when you go back and forth with players that you look at that sometimes you're splitting hairs. And it might just be an interview. It might be actually a Zoom interview. One guy's on time for the interview, the other guy's 7 minutes late. And players don't always understand that. Like you're talking about players that are so close in your sequence. And it's just the little things. And I can give you so many examples if we were going to do this longer about going to practice. And player doesn't even know that I'm affiliated with the team. And I'm over by the fence. And I hear him say something walking in and I'm like, I'm not drafting that guy. It's all those little things sometimes that resonate with the scout or the GM that make the biggest difference.
Yeah, I noticed it gets very, going through that process, it gets very, you guys know a lot. I will say that. You guys do your homework well. So that is.
And now we got CoCap working with us.
Yeah, he's on the other side now. I don't know how.
He's going to be cutting you up every day.
I don't know how I feel about that. But all right, so this year's draft, every draft class is so unique. What excites you the most about this draft class upcoming?
Yeah, I would say the depth across the board. We feel like through the 4th round, we'll have a chance to get guys that can come in and start. Now, historically, I think only about 20% of 4th round picks end up, being significant players. I think we're a little better than that, but our goal this year would be, we've got the 5 4th round picks. We want to see if we can get 60 or 75% of those guys that end up coming in and contributing. We're looking for guys, and I think back about like some of our best 4th round picks, guys like Zadarius, there's been a lot more Jarrett Johnson back in the day, Anthony Averett from a recent draft. But we've had some really good 4th round picks, but the goal would be this year, we see the depth, we see the amount of players on the board. We don't see, so a good draft board doesn't have any bald spots like my head. You've got players from the top to the bottom all the way down. There's no space on the board. And we see that this year. That's exciting for us, and we think there's great opportunity throughout.
Well, I know we'll do great in the draft. Good luck with that. But before I let you go, I got some bonus questions here.
Okay. Yeah.
You can answer. These are a little on the different sides. You can just say next question, okay? Giving you that forewarning right now, all right? Mm-hmm. So the draft is coming up. Everyone wants to know, and I feel like I got you here, so I might as well ask you, who are we drafting on Thursday night?
I'm going to tell you. We're going to draft the best available player.
Great answer. So Tom Brady is like the ageless wonder. He's been able to successfully play year after year, really with no hesitation. So, there's other people that can do that. So I'm asking you, what are the chances I could just sign, a max deal all the way until I'm 38, and we'll just agree now that I won't age, and we can get that in writing.
Yeah. Have Joel give me a call.
Okay, I'll do that. I can make that happen. Joel's my agent. So I know you guys have a great relationship, with, Harv's, Mr. Bisciotti, you. And so, yeah, we have a good relationship, but I want to ask, it's the off season, a lot of flying going on. I know he has a jet. From what I hear, he might have a couple. What are the chances that I could borrow Mr. Bisciotti's jet just for the rest of the off season?
I'll give you his contact information.
But okay, that works too. All right.
He might do it if you renegotiate your contract and make less money.
See, that's why I wanted you to ask. If you ask, then I don't even have to come up. Then we're good. Okay, last question here. Who's your favorite player on the team, and why is that player me?
Wow. Well, you know what, Marlon? I'll say this about you. I remember a few years ago, you didn't want to weigh in. Remember that?
We never.
And you started yelling at me. Why are you guys trying to find me all the time? Why are you guys always trying to find me?
I don't even have a weight to be.
You have grown so much since then.
Well,
you know what?
There's more to that story that you do not know, but
you opened up Pandora's box.
No, that y'all did this.
You have grown. No, I mean right now you have just grown so much. Your maturity level, the way you take care of your body, nutrition, your training.
That gets more back to that 38-year-old deal. That's just take care of my body, all that stuff. So, Eric, thank you for your time.
Thanks, man.
Cut.